this job, when you meet certain people that you really admire, it is difficult not to become a little too fan-like. Do you know what I mean, chums? It's supposed to be the same for all of us. You meet somebody, you think, wow, you know. And the second part of that is you realise that they're just human. They've got all their sort of foibles and failures all around them, like we all have, you know, problems, whether it be with health, with just normal life problems. And you realise that, in fact, they're just kind of lucky. You know, fame is really all about luck, placing yourself in the right moment. And if the public like you, then you can be, well, escalated beyond your wildest dreams. And we know this by looking at greats like, for instance, whether it be the actor John Wayne, whether it be Frank Sinatra, Judy Garland, Barbara Streisand, you know, they can have long-lasting careers. I was thinking this the other day, and I don't know if you agree with me on this, but it's very hard now, I think, to sort of attain that level of fame, whether it be somebody as beautiful as Sophia Loren or Jane Mansfield or something, you know, because the imagery was very indelible and it stuck on your mind because you saw it on posters. Now we just swipe past these beautiful people and they're going to be famous, but in a very minuscule box, not necessarily worldwide. One lady that I was lucky enough to meet really was a lovely, lovely lady called Donna Summer. And I wanted to share this particular story with you that I think you might enjoy. As ever, let me explain. Morning, lovely to see you, chums. Thank you so much for joining me today. Nice to have your company. You know, when you also we'll have a wave. When you talk about disco, do you remember disco? Wasn't it terrific? Night Fever, Von Ellerman, do you remember that? Tavares, More Than a Woman. I think it all started really, didn't it, with Saturday Night Fever. I mean, disco had been around before, but I think the Bee Gees and that brilliant film really kick-started it all off. I was a little too young for that, but I do remember people wandering around in white suits, suddenly striking that famous pose. Sorry, I think somebody's just flown into my eye. Suddenly we're all kings of disco, aren't we? And as I told you before, I was just delighted to meet Chic. That is the Nile Rodgers. Sadly, I never met Bernard Edwards, but they made some terrific disco records. A little bit like, of course, this lady who was also lucky enough to meet, Donna Summer. What a song, what a songstress, you know, what a lady, a beautiful lady too, let me tell you. You know, just gorgeous really to look at, but also just a kind, kind soul. I'll never forget what she said to me. One day we were just having a chat and I said, you know, you've got a terrific voice, Donna, because she had this power, you know, the incredibly strong voice that you could almost just billow out the microphones in the studio, you know. And she said, oh, well, you know, where I come from, there's many, many people like me. You know, I'm nothing special. She said, you know, there's a lot of better voices than me. We just all sang in the gospel choir. And I thought, wow, no wonder gospel choirs produce such wonderful singers. Do you know what I mean? She was just terrific. Now, for many of us, of course, rather raunchy when she first started out in the middle 70s with Love to Love You Baby, and then the disco classic that was I Feel Love. I was fascinated when I found that record because it was all computer, wasn't it? Giorgio Moroder, remember, came up with it all, and suddenly a new sound was born, heralded by, of course, the brilliant Donna on vocals. What was fascinating, though, many, many years later, I was lucky enough to interview Julio Iglesias. Now, ladies, yes, hold yourself, absolutely. Julio is a charming, charming man. We ended up having lunch together at the Dorchester Hotel where we did a very lengthy interview for, I think it was Sony Records at the time. And I've been lucky enough, in fact, to interview his son as well, Enrique Iglesias. Both nice people, just nice, down-to-earth people. And he told me that, in fact, one of the great, you know, biggest regrets that he had was never ever going to record with Donna. And apparently they met, you know, at a number of occasions, most famously, I think, at the Grammys in the early 80s. And apparently, you see, he just loved the Donna Summer Barbara Streisand duet, No More Tears, Enough Is Enough. And he thought, well, okay, what about doing a male sort of female version of that, you know, turning it back? Not that song, a brand new song, but Donna and Julio. She loved the idea. She was a big fan of his as well. And they tried to get it together. Now, according to Julio, apparently it was the label that said, no, you know, we're not seeing this because she's this disco queen and you're more of a middle of the road romantic singer, right? This is how labels get it wrong. Can you imagine if that have got together now and they'd have recorded a wonderful, wonderful tune together, just two great voices? I mean, Donna, you know, you would have been hard pressed to get Julio in there. He was utterly charming, as I said, but he told me that was one of his very big regrets. The music business, you know, is full of those, because I remember interviewing a good friend of mine also, Johnny Mathis, and I mentioned this before. He too made an album with Chic, now Rodgers, Bernard Edwards, and the label for many, many years decided to put it to one side because they felt that it wasn't the right thing for him. And now that became a collector's edition that would have readdressed the entire audience direction of Johnny Mathis, and there were brilliant songs. But Johnny had no control. It's different today, isn't it? If you're a young sort of musician, pop star, you have the control. But as I said at the start of the video, will you have the fame and the long-lasting legacy that these icons like Donna, Julio, Barbara, etc. have? I'd love to know what you think to this particular story, as ever, in the comments below. Tell me your favourite Donna Summer track, your favourite Julio track, or Barbara Streisand, and were you a Johnny Mathis fan? A big regular at Batley Variety Club, let me tell you. Neil Shaw in Kensington, London.